Hi, this is CS146. I'm Matthew Ventures. Today I wanted to walk through a very simple example of what it's like to talk through your code and explain the feature design decisions you made. This is by no means a representative of what a student submission should be. It's just me explaining kind of the process of walking through the different features that you might have included or design decisions that you thought of along the way. You'll notice that this submission or example submission totally does not have a one-page game design, which is necessary for assignment 1. So do not look at this as a perfect example. In fact, this game would not receive full score. So you're going to see that there's actually some bugs still there. And one of the features which I implemented, the dynamic levels, which I'll show you in just a moment, is not fully implemented. So it still has some bugs. So this wouldn't be a full score. It's just an example of how you might walk through some of the design decisions you made. Okay, so I'm going to put a few minutes on the clock, and we'll just walk through it. The first thing is, hi, my name is Matthew Ventures, and my SUID is OMatthew, O-M-A-T-T-H-E-W. It might be helpful to type that, so there you go, just like that. Hopefully that's large enough text. And the three big features which I looked at were trying to round this game into a setting, adding in particle effects, and then having the dynamic levels. So instead of the cubes being in a set place, they come up in a random location every time. So I'd like to play through the game first and kind of give you a feel for what it plays like. So let's jump into it. Alright, cool. So that's a quick feel for what the game's like. I think you've got the gist of it. I'm going to now go back through it again. I'm going to turn the audio off just so I could talk over it and give you a sense for kind of each one of those features, visiting them one by one. The first one is the settings. So I use roadblocks instead of blocks. I use a motorcycle instead of the player cube, and I'm using street lamps on the side of what I'm now calling the street because I've put a setting into this thing. One of my inspirations was Tron Legacy. I love the movie and the game. It's awesome. And I thought it'd be a cool aesthetic to kind of go with this neon cyberpunk look. The assets I acquired from the asset store. So this one I got from TurboSquid and I just recolored it. Everything else I grabbed from the asset store. So here's the street lamp, for example, that I grabbed. Right on. So one of the reasons why I think this was really impactful for the game is bumping into things with the motorcycle instead of the cube just feels so much more visceral. And I think that's because we're almost personifying the motorcycle. We picture ourselves as the driver of the motorcycle. And one of the ways, or another feature which I did, a little camera trick in order to really sell this, is I made the camera a child of the vehicle transform. So take a look. When I crash now, I set the vehicle to kind of blow up and move in a crazy direction. And because the camera is a child of the vehicle, so does the camera. So you'll see it twists over just like the vehicle does. And I think that adds a sort of, let's say, vitality to the vehicle, and it makes it a really ferocious explosion. I also added the particle effects, which I think add to that as well, and really just amplify this kind of game feel, a sensation they get when they crash into the wall. The other thing is the speed trail. So you'll see that behind the vehicle, I've got this pink line which trails it, and I think that helps build a sense of momentum, and it makes it feel almost faster. Also, a very small touch is I've added a headlamp light. So just in front of the vehicle, you'll see a little light trailing. Also, I added a light to all of the different obstacles, which helps you see them from a distance, which is really helpful because unlike the cubes, which were easy to see from a distance, I really made this level a lot more foggy, so I needed that bright light to kind of shine through, which almost gives the vibe off that you're traveling at night or something like that. And the last thing to touch on was the dynamic levels. So instead of having the cubes in a set location, what I did was I started an unsuccessful foray into having them randomly spawn, right? So this is just another direction which one might take, and basically I've set a bunch of spawn points on the map. You'll see them here. And then I identified different groupings of barriers. So for example, these barriers are in a certain orientation, let's say. I encapsulated that as a game object called the obstacle group number 5, and then I spawn a random obstacle group at each one of the spawn points. That way it's always a random map. Unfortunately, one of the reasons why this would not receive full credit is it wasn't done very well, and actually the curated map that we had originally I think was more rewarding. So more work would be needed there to make sure that they're falling in line and that we get an interesting play experience every time. I also got some feedback from friends. So one of my friends said that the game was too easy, and I think that's a product of kind of me not putting enough time into that AI. So that's something that I'd work on if this was going to be my submission. And then the other thing is that my friend Josh said that the black sky was boring. So I think that's an area where I can add a lot more attention. And I know it's not where the player is going to be looking, but I think more can be done there just to really sell the scene. I made sure to list my assets, so that's an important thing. And I think that kind of, so that's 5 minutes right there. So that would cover what it might look like to walk through your game, explain some of the decisions you made. It's even okay to explain pitfalls. I know I said this assignment wouldn't do so well, but that's not because there was room for improvement. It's because the obstacles didn't work out even though they should have, even though I started working on that. To say something like, maybe I need to tune the difficulty settings, maybe I need to add a hard mode versus an easy mode, that's all appropriate, right? And this is just a prototype. It's not your final project. This is a prototype which might become your final project. But right now it's totally okay to acknowledge, hey, this is an area where it can be improved, and here's an area where I think it's really excelling. Right on. So thanks for sticking with that. I hope this was helpful in giving you a sense of what a video submission might look like with a voiceover, and I'm really looking forward to checking out your submissions in the days soon to come. Thanks.